our mission leader told me about a urgent call that was coming from Catholic Charities for help down at the Mexico-U.S. border. And it was one of those moments as a Providence caregiver that, and as an individual, I think that you just know in that moment that you're called. Yes. And that you really don't have an option not to act. And we were sent down to McAllen, Texas, not really knowing what we were going to walk into. And frankly, I don't think we could have imagined. Wow. And I think what was most striking to me is it was downtown McAllen, Texas, right across from the bus station. So pretty abandoned kind of in some business sort of area. So this is not a real welcoming sort of place at that moment. And the walls and the windows, rather, were all darkened, and there was an armed person outside of the door. That was kind of the initial impression. It was dark inside as well. There were wall-to-wall people standing, lying down. There wasn't a lot of noise. There were some overhead pages, a little, maybe a cry here and there from children, but mostly pretty subdued and just a lot of coughing, just a lot of coughing.
Okay.
So it was shocking to first walk in there. And I guess the word I would most say is it was chaotic, and there wasn't a lot of structure around anything. And maybe to back up a little bit, 5 years prior, Sister Norma Pimentel out of the Rio Grande Catholic Charities area understood that there was a need for help for individuals, refugees. And so she established this respite center, which really was individuals that have been cleared through the United States, are free to be in the country, but now need to get to their sponsor or their family, whoever, has facilitated their getting here legally. But yet what was happening was and again, I'm not being critical, I'm just reporting what happened. The government, ICE, would drop off about 200 people just to the downtown McAllen bus stop, and there you had it. And if you can imagine, having traveled 30, 45 days in the same clothes, stories were heard, were running from cartels and coyotes, and people had experienced family loss and rape and all sorts of horrific things, and they're in a place of safety, and they're just going to get dumped into a world. And I can't imagine that the feeling that must have been to not be able to speak the language or know how to. I mean, it's hard to get around in airports and buses when you live here and you speak the language, let alone, having the fear factor and everything else. So she saw that, and she also saw what it was kind of doing to the city of McAllen, frankly. And so she created this respite center for about 200 people a day, which was great. And they were able to bring folks in, get them some, donated but newer, clean clothes and opportunity for shower, and then help them with logistics of getting to their families. So that was what she set up. And that was working, but this last year, as you know, the government and the border situation changed quite a bit. And so the urgent call that I got from my mission leader was that we were, Sister Norma was actually receiving up to 1,000 people a day or night without notice. And so what we walked into was just that, 1,000 people in a space that was designed for 200, and it was chaotic. I found myself, with my limited Spanish, my self-assigned roles were, I really initially started just realizing that the people in the space didn't have water. They didn't have any water, and it was so crowded. So, again, the basic needs, we went and made sure that all the water buckets or the jugs that were there were accessible, that there were cups, because people didn't want to leave their mat or their place in line to go get those things. So, also there was a lot of nursing moms, and you could just tell clinically that they weren't producing a lot of milk because they aren't hydrated. And so I just kept taking cups of water to these women as they were nursing, and would say something like, muy importante for leche, or some really poor Spanish thing, and they'd smile. But at the end of the week, they started smiling as I approached them. At first it went from, can I trust what she's giving me to drink, honestly, to, oh my gosh, and it's just that leaning in, compassion, and making eye contact. And I think in some ways it was almost better I didn't speak fully their language, because I really had to connect with them, with my eyes and my body, and just really connect with them on a human level. And I would say hola, as people were waiting in the line, and I started asking them "Donde va?" Where are you from? And they would tell me, and with such pride, they would tell me Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and then I'd ask them if they knew where they were going. And one gentleman said, he was going to something, and I couldn't quite understand what he said, and we worked on it. Finally, I understand he was saying Virginia. And so for the next day or so, I helped him how to enunciate Virginia, and we laughed about, how much progress he'd made and how poor my Spanish was. It was a really neat moment. And it was neat the next day to come and have those people kind of lighten up and smile when they saw you coming and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this from your heart and not your political brain, perhaps. And I know that we have to deal with those issues too, but this particular moment, this particular story was about human-to-human connection, compassion, empathy, dignity, and recognizing that we all could fall upon hardship at any time. So.